Next man up, 1025, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on your Monday morning, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I am back in Virginia, getting ready to spend the holiday with some family. Parker back in Nashville. Parker, how's it going?
Jake, I'm doing good today. Titans got a win yesterday, which I am very happy to talk about. First round of the college football playoff. It seems like people are finally starting to come around that we may need a group of 5 playoff. Hey, the Bears got an exciting win on Saturday night too. Great weekend.
Yeah, it was a heck of a weekend of football. I mean, we already talked about the Thursday night game and the Seahawks come back to win that one in overtime. But you're right, the Bears coming back from down 16-3 in the final 2 or 3 minutes of that game to get the win, got the onside kick. Caleb Williams was great down the stretch. Yesterday, crazy ending to Steelers and Lions in the late slate. And you mentioned it, the Titans did get a win. Their third win of the season, their first win at home in well over 13 calendar months. But they got it done 26-9 over the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. And Parker, I said it on Friday. I felt like the Titans were going to win that game. That's a Chiefs team that was without their leader, their star quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. And again, they were playing out of playoff contention for the first time in a decade. And none of those guys on that team, at least the ones who have been there for a long time, know how to play when they have nothing to play for. And it got even worse when Gardner Minshew then tears his ACL as well in the first half. And you have to go with Chris Oladokun for the rest of the day, who is not somebody I knew existed until he checked into the game. And the Titans did what they should do against a team playing their third-string quarterback with nothing to play for. They dominated. I mean, that was the Titans controlled that game, held the Chiefs under 150 total yards of offense, somewhere around there.
Yep, sounds about right.
It was the most complete win of the Titans season. And yeah, you would have liked to see that earlier on in the year, but that's not where we are at this point. The team is 3-12, and I know that it hurts the draft position. Titans went from first to third to sixth all in the last 3 weeks, but they're showing progress. That's now 4 out of 5 that they've scored 24 or more. And that was one of those games where you can leave it feeling good. The Cardinals game, I didn't know if you could actually leave that feeling like you won. Rather, the Cardinals lost it. The Browns game, you were controlling it, and then you almost gave it away. This one, the Titans controlled basically from start to finish, and they're 3-12. Yeah, it hurts your draft stock, but it's good to see the Titans are putting together some sustained success and actually building off of the performances from week to week.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Wins, in my mind, are always going to be better than draft position because you want this team to build some confidence. They talked about it on the broadcast yesterday that you can see the young nucleus of players, Cam Ward, Chim Dike, Alec Aomanor, Gunnar Helm, Peter Skoronski, J.C. Latham. You can see this young core. So you want this team to learn how to win, even if it's against a injury-riddled opponent. You want this team to learn how to win. And Cam Ward, I thought, played the best game of his short career. So you want to see your rookie quarterback start to figure it out and figure out how to play well. This offensive line, run blocking was great yesterday. The run game has looked good the last 3 weeks. You want this team to learn how to do things the right way, even if it means you're not going to get the first overall pick.
Yeah, and we talked about it from the beginning of the year, that this year was less about the wins and the losses than it was about Cam Ward's development. And I think you hoped it would come with more wins. We were all talking about 5, 6, 7 wins, seeing a market improvement of this team with you expected better quarterback play. And although the wins haven't been there and they weren't there through the first 3 months, you are seeing that improvement from Cam Ward. And there are 2 games left to go. He's got to be able to continue this upward momentum. But it's great to see that Cam was able to put together, for the most part, a complete game. Now, was it perfect? Absolutely not. There was still a missed throw here and there. He took a couple of sacks early on, which, I'm not sure he had much time on either of those. But later on in that game, that first drive of the third quarter, he was phenomenal, and he led the Titans to a win. So I think you can take a lot from these last 4 or 5 weeks since the bye week. the Jaguars game excluded, where the team played horrible really in all three phases. But since the bye week, the Titans have been a competitive football team, which they were just not for the better part of the first 2 months of the year. Big Jeff continuing to make plays, getting the safety just, basically the guard might as well not have been there as he was in the backfield so fast. Made the Chiefs offensive line have a complete breakdown on the sideline after that as the Titans went up 2-0. Parker, I thought the game might end 2-0 at that point. I mean, the offenses, I think it was 5 straight punts to start the day before that safety. It looked like it was going to be one of those games where neither team could score. The Titans offense obviously figured it out, but it was great to see Big Jeff get in the backfield and spark the team a little bit there.
Yeah, that first half was really ugly, and you have to love football if you watch that first half. You have to absolutely love it. It was kind of like the Panthers game from a couple years ago when the Titans hosted the Panthers. Crappy weather, and the broadcaster came over the mic and said, "Man, you love football if you're going to sit here and watch this football game." It was before the game even started. That's how I felt in the first half yesterday.
I was in the building for that Panthers game a couple of years ago. That was
Props to you.
Was that the second to last Titans win? Third to last Titans win?
Might have been.
They beat the Patriots last year, the Jaguars at the end of the year, and I think the Panthers game was the one before that. So the Titans finally get back in the win column at home. A little bit of controversy with Jeffrey Simmons at the end of that game as the refs. I don't even know how to describe how they messed up that call, and obviously it didn't have any impact on the outcome of the game. I know there were some people who might have had money on the game who were upset about it, whether it's, betting on Tony Pollard to score a touchdown or how many points were scored in the game. But Tony Pollard scores the touchdown with Jeffrey Simmons reporting eligible. And I love the broadcast camera caught all of it. Jeffrey Simmons running in, raising his hand, brushing the front of his jersey, and the referees both acknowledging it that he was coming in eligible. And then they still ruled him ineligible and called it an illegal formation. I just don't get how the referees can mess it up as bad as they do sometimes.
I don't know either. I mean, it was very clear he was checking in. So I don't have an explanation for it. It was terrible. It ultimately had no impact on the game.
Right. The game ended 26-9. It was 23-9. I guess the only thing you could say for the Titans is it took away their chance to score 30 in 2 out of 3 games. And 30 has been a kind of a dividing line for the Titans. They had that long stretch before the Dolphins game last year where they couldn't break 30 to save their lives. They finally did it again against Cleveland. Could have had it for the second time this year yesterday if they had allowed that touchdown. But instead, you'll take a 26-9 win. Titans are now 3-12. And again, for those of you looking at the draft order, we're going to get into that a little bit more later on in the show. But the Titans currently sitting with the 6th overall pick with the exact same strength of schedule as Arizona. So there's a chance if the Titans stay where they are and don't get a ton of help, they could still end up in the top 5. But the dream of the number 1 pick is all but gone, especially with the Raiders and Giants playing next week. When the Titans had 2 wins, it was nice that the Raiders and Giants were playing because you were saying, well, somebody has to win that game. One of them is going to fall back into the pack with 3 wins. But now somebody also has to lose that game, and you're going to have somebody with 2 losses or 2 wins heading into the final week of the season. So Titans almost certainly not going to have the number 1 overall pick, but still a chance, depending on how the last couple weeks sort out, to end up in position to take a blue chip player. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. It is a Reaction Monday. We want to hear from you. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Again, if you have any thoughts on the Titans, their win yesterday, Cam Ward's performance, the college football playoff, we're going to get to all of it. We want to hear from you. 615-737-1025. We will talk college football playoff. Couple of good games, couple of other games that were played this weekend to get us to our quarterfinals matchups, which are now set. It'll be Oregon, Texas Tech, Indiana, Alabama, Ole Miss and Georgia, and Ohio State and Miami coming up on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. We'll talk about all of those games. Also, Diana Rossini of The Athletic putting out a list of possible Titans head coaching candidates. We'll look through that list and see if there's any names that stand out to us. But first, of course, we have to go through Cam Ward, with his best day as a Titan yesterday, 75% completion percentage, 228 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the day. Cam Ward leading the Titans to a win, and it was an important one for him. Mondays were made for Macero, big screens, bold flavors, and all the football action from queso to kickoffs. This is how Macero does game night. Macero Football Mondays in 12 South. Don't miss a snap. We are off and running on this Monday morning, talking Titans here in this first hour. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up here on 102.5 The Game.
Just like today, like I told him, most, passing yards in Titan history for a rookie. I kind of threw that in and joked with him, but like that's big time, and that the expectation that he had for himself, and that's the reason why, man. Honestly, I keep telling people that's the reason why I don't want to go nowhere. I see the competitive nature, I see the growth, as a rookie of Cam. I see I can see where he could take this franchise. So, I'm looking forward to continue to end the season the right way. And we'll see how next year go for us.
That was Jeffrey Simmons after the game yesterday talking about Cam Ward's performance and the way the Titans were able to get a win that Cam Ward approved of yesterday. As Jeffrey Simmons said, Cam can't be the Grinch after yesterday's win. Titans get it done 26-9. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday. DVD with Willie Donick, Derek Mason, and Adam Finken will be broadcasting live at the all-new Circus Sportsbook Kentucky in the Mint Gaming Hall today prior to the Monday Night Football game. Tonight's matchup is the 49ers and the Colts. So Cam Ward puts together his best outing as a Titan, 75% passing, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is now over 60% completion on the season. He again sets the Titans rookie record for passing yards, which needs to be taken with a grain of salt. Marcus Mariota previously held it, and I believe he only played 11, 12, 13 games, somewhere in there. He missed some time. But this is now 3 games in a row with multiple passing touchdowns for Cam Ward. And, it's only 2. It's not like he's putting up 3 or 4 touchdowns every game, but he didn't have any games with 2 or more touchdowns through the first 12 weeks of the season. So it was great to see him do it again. Now, the touchdown passes, it was a little shovel and a 1-yard out route to Chimdike, but he made some really impressive throws. And the one that's getting the most run is the kind of Mahomes-like play of rolling out to his left, pivoting at the last second, throwing across his body, and dropping it on a dime to Chimdike on the sideline. That is the type of throw that we've seen from Cam Ward pretty much all year. Now, he was going the other direction, which I thought was a little more impressive. Usually he's rolling to his right. This time he was out to his left, made a nice play. But I'm just so glad to see the throw before that to Alec Iamaner down the sideline, because we've spent the last 2 weeks talking about Cam Ward and the accuracy down the field outside the numbers. That's been one of the main problems. If you talk about some of the big issues with Cam Ward in his rookie season, it's the ball security, which has gotten a whole lot better over the last month. We haven't seen any of those phantom fumbles. We've only seen 1 fumble in general, I think, over the last month. And then, of course, throwing the ball downfield accurately, especially outside the numbers. He misses the throw to Chimdike 2 weeks ago in Cleveland. He misses the throw to Van Jefferson last weekend against San Francisco. It was great to see yesterday him drop back in the pocket, step into a throw, and drop it in the bucket to Alec Iamaner. Maybe that can calm down some people who are worried about that part of his game. And it shows that, hey, if Cam Ward works on something, he can develop it. He's just got to start to do it more consistently from here on out.
Yeah, and some of the throws that he was making yesterday should give the fans, should give the team a lot of hope, because the talent is clearly there. But now we just need to see things get better around him. And again, I hit on it at the top of the show, but the young nucleus is there. You have the 3 rookie pass catchers. You have Cedric Gray on your defense. You have, Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham. So you have some young players that just need time to continue to develop. But also, they're going to have the most cap in the NFL come the offseason. So that should be very encouraging. And you want to see what Mike Bergonzi can do with another draft, because early returns are he's hit on most of the draft picks this year. So you want to see what he can do with a full offseason, with another draft, and continue to see how you can build around Cam Ward, because what we saw yesterday was very encouraging.
Right. And it's great to see Cam Ward has grown throughout the season. I remember having conversations in September when Cam Ward was struggling. I think it might have been after the Texans game in week 4, where he only completed 10 passes for barely over 100 yards and the Titans got shut out. And what I wanted to preach to people is, let's see where he is in December. If we're still talking about the same things and the production hasn't caught up and he looks the way he does now in December, then maybe we start to have an issue. Cam Ward looks way better than he did in September. Still not good enough, and I don't think that anybody can, with any degree of confidence, say Cam Ward is the franchise quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. But you have to feel a lot better about it right now than you did even a month ago. And there's only 2 games left to go in the season. I don't think anybody's opinion is going to be swayed one way or another. If you don't think Cam Ward's the guy right now, these last 2 games aren't going to change your opinion. If you think Cam Ward probably is the guy, I don't think these last 2 games are going to change your opinion. That's why this offseason is so important. And like you said, Parker, Mike Borgonzi has proven he has the ability to find some gems, especially late in the draft. You look at the Titans' leading receivers. Chiga Okonkwo is the Titans' leading receiver. He is the only Titan with more than 500 receiving yards this year, and he just had his first touchdown of the season yesterday. The next 3 guys are all the 4th-round rookies. It's Alec Iamander, Gunnar Helm, and Chim Dike. Those are receivers number 2, 3, and 4 for Cam Ward this year. So are those guys going to be superstars? I don't know. I don't think so. You don't usually find superstars in the 4th round. You can, but it's not typical. But they can be key cogs for this Titans offense that if you go out and get a star player, that they can end up being great complementary pieces. I don't think Chim Dike or Alec Iamander is ever going to be a wide receiver 1. I hope so. I hope that after this year, maybe they get past this rookie wall and they're able to take a huge stride in year 2. But they're probably never going to be your wide receiver 1. But they are showing enough promise that you feel like you've got the foundation on your offense with a couple of the offensive linemen you got, a couple of these pass catchers. Cam Ward, obviously the most important. But I think you're right. I think Mike Borgonzi has to know that this offseason, his biggest task is to put Cam Ward in the best situation possible to succeed, which is going to start with free agency. As we've talked about, raise the floor, make sure that he's got options in the backfield and shore up the offensive line. If you want to move on from Kevin Zeitler, do you believe Jackson Slater is ready to step into that right guard spot? But the main thing, of course, is finding him more weapons. And the Titans, with where they are in the draft right now, you're picking 6th as it stands right now, and we'll see how everything shakes out the last 2 weeks. But with the Titans likely out on the number 1 or number 2 pick, I think the one thing Titans fans should already start to look for April, things can change, but does Carnell Tate fall to you? Because I think that's starting to become plan 1A for the Titans as we come down the stretch of the season.
Or Jordan Tyson or a Mekhi Lemon, who's going to be my draft crush. The good thing is there's always going to be positions of need for every team. But with the Titans, they just need talented football players. That's what they need. And obviously you want to get some pass catchers for Cam Ward. You'd like to get some defensive pieces as well. I get all that. But you really just need guys that can go out there and just play the game the right way. You need talented football players. So that should be encouraging heading into the offseason, because you know that if you're able to potentially trade that pick and get more, then you can go out and get some talented football players, because there are a lot in this upcoming draft.
Right. And that's obviously the ideal scenario is you can trade back and load up. We reference it all the time from Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker. They want 30 picks in the 3 drafts. That includes last year's draft, this year's draft in 2027. They want 12 in the top 100. The only way to really do that is to trade out of a high pick. And the Titans right now are playing themselves out of that scenario. It's good in some ways. It's bad in others. Yeah, you might look back and let's say the Giants elect to stick with Jackson Dart and they get the number 1 overall pick and they trade out for 3 firsts and 2 seconds and a third. And you might look back and say, man, that could have been us. We could add all that capital. But if this is the step forward that Cam Ward needed to head into the offseason with some confidence and building the rapport with some of these young guys on the team, I think you may look back and finding that important as well. Now, you'd still like to stay in position to be able to draft an elite player. And the good news for the Titans is that there's really not that much further that they can fall. Right now, they're at 6th. Washington is the only team in the league with 4 wins. And then you get to New Orleans with 5. So as long as the Titans don't win 3 straight games to end the year, they beat the Chiefs yesterday, beat the Saints on Sunday, and then go beat Jacksonville on the road, who they just beat Denver on the road and snapped their 12-game winning streak.
The Jags are
11-game winning streak.
The Jags are very
the Jaguars,
good.
That is the surprise team of the year for me. I thought it was going to be the Colts before they fell apart, and of course the Daniel Jones injury. The Jaguars, I did not see this coming for them, and they still have a path to be the number 1 seed in the AFC. Crazy.
It's crazy because after yesterday, there are 6 teams in the AFC besides the Broncos, 6 teams in the AFC, or it's either 6 or 5, that have double-digit wins but have not solidified a playoff spot. That shows you how wide open it is.
I believe that can change tonight if the Niners beat the Colts. I think a lot of those teams would wrap up their playoff spots. But basically the point I'm trying to make is the Titans, by winning that game, you're already close to the floor of where you can pick. I find it hard to imagine the Titans are going to win both of these next two games and are going to be picking outside of the top 7. I think picking inside the top 7 and likely going to be higher than that based on what happens elsewhere, you're going to be able to get an elite player. And that's what you need. And you get to see Cam Ward take a big step forward. And I think that's more important than whether you're picking 3rd or 6th, because you're still going to be able to get one of these blue chip players at the top of the draft. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Adam in Portland on the text line says it was great to see Cam do well yesterday. Can we acknowledge what an absolute garbage hand he's been dealt with the crazy schedule, playing 12 games against the top 11 defenses as a rookie? Also did that with a limited roster and terrible coaching. I'm proud of him. We have a bright future. And I think we've gotten to the point where if you don't see the potential with Cam Ward, I don't know what you're looking at. He has maybe the worst wide receiver core in the league. Nothing against those guys, but it's a bunch of rookies, veteran minimum guys, and practice squatters. The offensive line didn't seem to figure it out until 3 months into the season. They've looked better the last couple of weeks, but they were horrible for 2-3 months. And again, you're like Adam said, playing a ton of tough defenses. That's not easy on a rookie quarterback. And that's not to excuse Cam of anything, because he has a lot that he has to get better at. There's so much that Cam Ward needs to improve on. But to be able to get through this season and improve despite all of the turmoil and your head coach getting fired and having different play callers and your number one wide receiver basically only plays 4 total games. Cam Ward has done a nice job of battling through some tough situations, the adversity, and still finding himself in a spot where I think you can take a lot of confidence into year 2. A lot has to get better, and there's only so long that you can live off of potential, right? Like Will Levis coming out of year 1, the potential was what made everybody excited for him. And he didn't live up to it in year 2. He stayed about the same and made some really crucial errors. Cam Ward is going to have to take a jump in year 2, like we've seen from Caleb Williams, like we've seen from Drake May, if you're going to truly believe that he is the franchise quarterback. But the last couple of weeks have given you a lot of hope. He's taking care of the football. He's making plays down the field. And you're seeing him improve in the areas that he needs to get better at. And that's been great. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. If you want to text or call, our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Getting a lot of people asking for Trey's take. We'll see if Trey calls in. B in Bellevue says he wants to hear from Trey. And 3337 says maybe this week we won't have to hear Trey call in about fundamentals.
It's crazy how much of a celebrity he's become.
I know. Trey, honestly, maybe we should find an hour for Trey.
The phone's ringing.
Maybe it is Trey. We will find out on the other side. 615-737-1025 if you want to chime in. Today between noon and 3, Chase and Big Joe will have your chance to win a $100 Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa gift card, and you can qualify to win a $1,000 Genesis Diamonds gift card. It's the 12 Days of Christmas on 1025 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Reaction Monday. Next man up, 1025 The Game. The NFL game of the week is the Cowboys and the Commanders on Christmas, Thursday at noon on 102.5 The Game. The NFL game of the week is presented by Circus Sportsbook Kentucky and Macero in 12 South. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game, reacting to the Titans' 26-9 win over the Chiefs yesterday. Titans with their third win of the season, first win at home in well over a year. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Adam in Portland on the text line says, I want to do a show with Trey, and it's not the first time he said this. Thank you. An Adam and Trey show. That one might be a good idea.
I'm
listen. Sure we'd get some great conversation out of that about the fundamentals. But Trey has been kind of AWOL the last couple of weeks. So I guess we'll have to see.
Rumor has it he's scared.
Yeah, I don't know. We've only heard from him maybe once in the last week and a half or so. And it was not Trey calling in before the break, but it was Dr. Locke. Let's go to our phone lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Dr. Locke on the line. What you got for us today?
What's up, fellas? Jake, what's going on?
What's up? How's it going?
You know why I'm calling. You know it.
Of course.
I know it. The American people know it. All year long, you've talked about SEC dominance. Have you guys not? If you take any one of our 2-win SEC teams and put them in the lowly ACC, put it in the Big 12, they'd be undefeated. Correct? Not correct?
I don't remember saying that.
I don't know if it was exactly that, but probably something in that vein.
Very much so. We need to retire that narrative forever. Forever. You had your top a team 1 win away from being in the SEC championship at home, 12-man rocket back and forth. Let's sway back and forth. Kyle Field rocket, a 2-loss ACC, not even ACC champion, came in 170 yards on the ground, right up the gut. It wasn't even as close as the final score. 3 missed chippy field goals. They really dominated that big powerhouse SEC team from what my eyes saw.
Yeah, I mean, Miami got the win.
Guys,
that was
not you guys, but I did represent the people on Silly Underdogs picks. You guys owe me some Trevor Noah picks. I could have gone easy and took Alabama, but that's not the way Dr. Locke. Dr. Locke wanted to show some sports knowledge, so I went with a bigger dog. I knew that one was coming in.
Well, Dr. Locke, to be fair, the ACC's tiebreaker method was a complete joke. Miami was the best team in the ACC and should have been in the game.
No question.
And I think they'll fix that moving forward. But I hate that I'm being called an anti-SEC or ACC person. Anybody watching the stream can see I've got Virginia Tech stuff all around me here.
I know.
Back
we
in
both
Virginia.
we both come from the 757. I was born in Akron, Ohio, but went to high school in Virginia Beach. So I hear you. I hear you. But your show has pandered to the SEC as it should. That's who your fan base is. But if we have to get real with it, let me walk out a scenario for you guys. So if Indiana beats Alabama, Texas Tech plays Oregon, so there's not an SEC opportunity. Right, that closes out that top half, and then if Ohio State beats Georgia and the SEC puts 6 teams in there and can't even get one in the championship game, at that point, can and will you guys finally admit that the SEC conference, which I know and everyone else in the Midwest knows, is not the best conference? Will you finally admit at that point, yeah, you're right, guys.
Hold on. So,
Dr. Locke, go ahead, Parker.
So here's the reality. The SEC got 5, not 6. The reality is the SEC from top to bottom is the best conference from top to bottom because there are more teams in the SEC that are competitive. Meanwhile, the Big Ten, and everybody knows this, the Big Ten is a very top-heavy conference. Now, there is a good reality that Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana could all get in the semifinals games and leave a Georgia or Ole Miss. So the Big Ten, in terms of the top, is probably better than the SEC. But from top to bottom, it's not even a conversation.
And I did pick. I picked 3 Big Ten teams in the semifinals, and I picked an all Big Ten championship game last week when Nick Frazier was on. So I yes, I believe the SEC, exactly as Parker said, is the deepest conference in all of college football. And you in the Big Ten, you get to play games against Rutgers and Purdue and Maryland and some of these teams that would not stack up to even the worst teams in the SEC. But yes, the top teams in the Big Ten have been much better over the last couple of years, and I think there's a good chance we see a Big Ten national championship again. But we'll see if it ends up being like Oregon and Ohio State, like I predicted. Maybe we'll have to cater to Dr. Locke's request there. Appreciate the call. Looking back at the Titans here, as they did get the win yesterday, 26-9. We were having the conversation about Cam Ward, and there's some people on the YouTube chat saying, that Cam Ward, yes, he's gotten better at some things, but there's a lot to work on. And I don't want to put it out there that I'm making excuses for everything this year and nothing was Cam's fault. Like Cam, it's a disappointing rookie season, basically no matter how it ends for Cam Ward. Unless he goes out and puts up, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in each of these next 2 games and the Titans win out and he looks like a star, I think you can overall say it's a disappointing rookie year for Cam Ward. Fans expected this team to take a step forward. They expected Cam to come out, and I expected him to at least be in the offensive rookie of the year conversation. And it hasn't been like that. But I think you can take the development and the growth and be encouraged about the trend that Cam Ward is on right now, because that's the most important thing. The Titans were never going to compete to get into the playoffs this year. This roster was not very good. But if you can see the growth from Cam Ward and feel like he is going to take that leap next year that we've seen from a lot of second-year quarterbacks, I think that makes you feel really solid about this team's direction heading into the offseason, despite all of the turmoil and the lack of talent around Cam Ward right now with all of the resources that you have to add to that this year.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. Sorry, I was doing something else, so I didn't hear the whole thing.
All good. It is difficult, a little inside baseball here when I am doing these shows remotely, because usually when these Monday shows, when it's just me and Parker, I can see what Parker's up to, and I know when I can send it to him or not. Not the case when I'm out here in Virginia. So
we're going to make it work, though. We're going to make it work.
We're making it work. We're making it work. Adam in Portland on the text line says, Jake, I also need you to give me my flowers when I said Alabama would mess all y'all up and y'all skip by them too quickly. Just had a feeling. And Adam, that is true. We all picked Oklahoma last week, and you said Alabama's going to make us look stupid. We'll get into that game coming up a little bit deeper in the second hour of the show. But yes, Alabama did roar back from 17-0, and that's a team that I don't know if I'd want to play right now. If Ty Simpson is healthy and he's playing well and he made some great throws late in that game, I don't know if I'd want to play Alabama right now. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll continue talking Titans on the other side. A couple of odds and ends from yesterday's win over the Chiefs. Then at 10 a.m., we'll get into the list of Titans head coaching candidates that was put out by Deanna Rossini of The Athletic. A very interesting group. And I have some thoughts on that. We'll do that at 10 o'clock. We'll continue talking Titans on the other side. The college football game of the week is Penn State and Clemson in the Pinstripe Bowl this Saturday at 11 a.m. on 102.5 The Game. Coverage presented by Circa Sportsbook Kentucky and is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. The game, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly alongside you, getting ready for the holidays. Christmas just 3 days away. Titans giving us a victory Monday here in late December, beating the Chiefs yesterday 26-9. Continuing to react to the Titans win, we went through Cam Ward's day. His best day as a Titan, made some great plays, helped the Titans get to the win, and starting to show that growth since the bye week. Only 1 interception, 9 touchdowns total, I believe, in that span. So he has been playing much better football. 2 weeks left to go in his rookie season. But a couple other odds and ends from the game yesterday. Parker, I know you're looking at the grid, so you can probably get this. But
yes,
Jeffrey Simmons obviously leads the team in sacks with 9. Do you know who's second?
Jalen Harrell.
No, it's Jihad Ward.
Really?
Jihad
Ward. How about
the
that?
Titans in sacks.
Is Jalen Harrell third?
Jalen Harrell is he is 5th with 3.
I know he's been playing well recently.
Well, so I guess Draymond Jones had 4.5. He's no longer on the team. He is still in 3rd on the team in sacks. Arden Key has 4. Jalen Harrell is next with 3. But Jihad Ward, 5 sacks this season. He had another 1.5 sacks yesterday, I believe, on back-to-back plays. And this conversation's about Jihad Ward, but I want to give some credit to Truman Jones as well, because I was not Truman Jones's biggest fan last week.
Well, we didn't know who he was, to be fair.
I didn't know who he was. Why is he on the field? So shout out Truman Jones. He got 1/2 sack yesterday. But Jihad Ward, 5 sacks. And when Lorenzo Carter retires, like we've seen from plenty of Titans players for some reason, right at the beginning of training camp, just say, I don't want to do it anymore. The Titans go out and sign Jihad Ward off the street. And everybody's kind of like, all right, well, he might make the team, he might not, but at best, he's probably a rotational pass rusher. The Titans, they don't have any elite pass rushers on this team, and Jihad Ward is never going to be an elite pass rusher. But 5 sacks for a guy you signed off the street just because you had a guy retire at the beginning of training camp, what a steal for the Titans. What a steal to bring that guy in. And TD has made this point. He needs to be back next year for the Titans. You have to be able to go out and get some, high quality pass rushers, whether that's in the draft. I don't think you're going to trade a whole lot of meaningful draft capital for a pass rusher at this point in your team's development. But if you could get a 1st or 2nd round pass rusher, that's great to try and pair with Femi Oladejo, who hopefully will be back on the field next week. But Jihad Ward as a 4th or 5th pass rusher, sign me up. And I don't think it would be all that expensive to keep him. I could not believe that looking at the stats, that Jihad Ward, 2nd on the team in sacks behind Jeffrey Simmons.
Yeah, no, that's surprising considering how the Titans acquired him. But no, that's absolutely a steal. And by the way, you brought up Draymond Jones, who's still top 5 in sacks for this team. Did you see he got a sack yesterday for the Ravens?
He did. And when it was 24-13, it was looking like the Ravens might put themselves right in the thick of the playoff race again, and then they blow it. They don't put Derrick Henry on the field inexplicably at the end of that game and lose to the Patriots. So sadly for the Titans, Draymond Jones is going to do his part of the bargain. It's not looking like the Ravens are going to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, that is true, because I believe they have to win out, and then the Steelers would have to lose out.
Yeah. I don't see it happening. They're not eliminated yet, but that's a
sliver of hope
for them
but
yesterday.
not likely.
Yes. So you're telling me there's a chance. So the Titans will likely have a 5th round pick. I believe it's only about a 20 spot jump, which 20 spots is important in the draft. But if you look at the difference in the Jimmy Johnson chart, I really don't think it's all that much. I know it's something to pay attention to, and I don't want to make it like it's almost nothing to say that, 20 spots would be great. But the difference here is, let's see, it would be about 5 spots or 5 points worth of draft capital, which is the equivalent of a late 6th round pick. So I really don't see it being that big of a deal, but it would have been nice to see it pop up a little bit there. But Draymond Jones, you mentioned, he is 3rd on the team in sacks for the Titans still, despite not having played for the Titans in the last 6 weeks. But Jihad Ward is 2nd with 5. Got to be back. you can't have enough depth on the edge. And I look back at the Titans teams that were good and were making the playoffs consistently. And yeah, you had Harold Landry and you had a guy like Bud Dupree out there that were supposed to be your top end guys. But you had guys like Kamale Correa also, who, yeah, you only hope they're out there for 15 to 20 snaps a game, but they can make a play for you every once in a while. Feels like you got a guy like that in Jihad Ward, and I would not let him get back out to the open market. Also looking at the numbers here for the Titans defense, Truman Jones now has a sack and a half on his season. So credit Truman Jones. He is 8th on the team in sacks.
Which is crazy considering we didn't know who he was last week. But it seems like the Titans are getting as much value as they possibly can for some of these guys, like Jalen Harrell. Jalen Harrell's been great considering that he was a 7th-round draft pick. So he's been about as good as he possibly can be for this team down the stretch.
And forced a fumble yesterday. 3 sacks total for him on the year. So Jalen Harrell should be around too. I think the Titans, you have to feel decent about the depth you've got at edge. You've got to go get the top end guy. And it does get a little bit harder for the Titans. And this will be the conversation, I think, for 4 months straight. Wide receiver or pass rusher with your first-round pick. Because the hope was you could have the why not both scenario where you trade back and you can get both in the first round maybe, or you pick up a pick for 2027. I think the Titans are going to have to make a tough choice at the top of the draft. If you're up there with Carnell Tate and Ruben Bain, we were talking about him sliding, all the reports about his short arms, and it was Dane Brugler who said that he was getting day 2 grades from some NFL front offices. He heard the noise and he goes out and gets 3 sacks against Texas A&M on Saturday. So maybe that's the decision that the Titans end up making if Arvell Reese is off the board and the Titans have to make a choice between a number 1 pass catcher for their quarterback or a guy who can disrupt the quarterback on the other side. Also wanted to mention James Williams yesterday, stepping in for Cedric Gray, and there was a good amount of hype for James Williams heading into the season. He was starting training camp as the starter next to Cody Barton. Cedric Gray obviously ended up passing him, but I think you feel a lot better after seeing James Williams flying around. He had a sack yesterday, I believe close to 10 tackles. Makes you feel a lot better about that group at inside linebacker heading into next year if you come back with Barton, Gray, Williams. And I kind of, and Parker, let me know if you agree here. I kind of think you head into next year with Gray and Williams as your 2 guys at linebacker, and maybe Barton becomes the reserve. Cody Barton's been fine, but I kind of like the upside of those 2 young guys over Barton, who you kind of know what he is at this point.
Absolutely. No, I agree 100%. And the big thing for James Williams was he got a majority of the reps next to Cody Barton in camp and actually looked really good, but we didn't know necessarily how he looked not playing next to Cody Barton, who was that, green dot on the defense, the leader back there. He's a captain for a reason. His leadership skills are excellent. So if Cody Barton doesn't happen to be on this team, I wonder what it would do for a guy like James Williams. Maybe Cedric Gray can assume that position. And the good thing about James Williams is he hasn't played this position for a long time. He played safety in college, but that should be able to translate well. He's a former 5-star recruit coming out of high school in Florida. So the athletic traits are there. So he was considered too slow to be a safety at the NFL level, but he could be considered a quicker linebacker, and the athletic traits are there. And then obviously Cedric Gray just exploding onto the scene this year. There is definitely a lot of upside there.
Yeah. Liking some of the young guys on defense stepping up. 1880 on the text line says the Titans need secondary players, and that is true. We just went through the front 7, and I think you feel pretty good about the front 7 outside of trying to get one of those impactful edge rushers that can be your number 1 guy on the outside. But in the secondary, there's obviously a lot of needs. Xavier Woods might be back next year. Kevin Winston will hopefully have a fully healthy offseason and can be better in year 2. But you're going to need depth at safety, and you're going to need a lot of cornerbacks this offseason for the Titans. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, we're going to get into the Titans head coaching search. A list of candidates came out from Diana Rossini this weekend of The Athletic. And it's very interesting. A lot of the names aren't the ones that you would have expected for the Titans. And not the whole list. There's definitely going to be other guys out there, but at least this was the initial list that Diana Rossini is reporting of guys the Titans will kick the tires on. We'll go through it, talk about our favorite names and who the Titans might end up bringing in for interviews in a couple of weeks. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, our number one in the books. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Second hour, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Fun first hour, recapping a 26-9 Titans victory. I saw this earlier, Parker, from Nick Suss. He put out 5 fun facts for the Titans and Chiefs, and the first one is pretty astounding to me. The Titans outgained the Chiefs by 243 yards. That is the Titans' most lopsided yardage advantage since Thanksgiving 2008 against Detroit.
Look at that. What a good weekend for the Titans.
I remember watching that game with Smash and Dash, Lendale and CJ2K eating the Thanksgiving meal after the game. So 17 years. Over 17 years since the Titans have had a game where they outgained an opponent by 243 yards or more. It was a dominant game from the Titans yesterday. Grain of salt that Chris Oladokun was starting at quarterback or playing at quarterback for most of that game for the Chiefs, but the Titans took care of business, which again has not been easy to do no matter who they've been playing so far over the last 2 years. But the big story around the Titans, of course, is who are they going to hire as the next head coach? And the Titans have plenty of options. We have talked ad nauseum over the past 2 months since Brian Callahan got fired about what kind of traits you want in a new head coach. Do you want experience? Does he have to be an offensive guy for Cam Ward? What do you want to see from these guys when they're building their staff? All these conversations. And Diana Rossini of The Athletic put out a group of 6 names that the Titans, at the very least, are interested in when they start requesting interviews in the next couple weeks. So here's the list from Diana Rossini. Chiefs offensive coordinator Matt Nagy. That one not a surprise, one we've talked about, former Bears head coach. Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. Colts defensive coordinator and former Bengals DC Lou Anarumo. Rams DC Chris Shula. And Texans DC Matt Burke. So 5 defensive guys, just 1 offensive guy, and it's Matt Nagy, the former Bears head coach. And with Nagy, I'd be fine with that. If that's the hire, it means that Mike Borgonzi has a good relationship with him and believes that he can come in and develop Cam Ward. Would it be the sexiest hire? No. And I don't think it would make me over the moon about the Titans' decision, but I think it's a fine hire for Matt Nagy. Experience. You know the guy's going to come in and he's not going to be learning on the job like we saw from Brian Callahan. And he's worked with quarterbacks in the past. He took Mitch Trubisky to a 12-win season. Now, he didn't develop Mitch Trubisky very well. And then he got a chance with Justin Fields and was fired after his rookie season. So there are definitely flaws when you look at the overall body of work for Matt Nagy. But would it be horrible? I don't think so. I don't think it would be the worst. Although, you look at it and it's a guy who's not calling plays for a team that's 6-9 now. That might be a little tough to sell for some people. But you look at the other defensive guys, and I'm not anti-defensive head coach. I think there are good options out there, but it's got to be the right guy. It's got to be a leader of men. Jeff Hafley is a very interesting name to me, Parker, because he has been a head coach before. He was the head coach at Boston College, but then he left to go become the DC of the Packers. And to me, I wonder if that's a guy who doesn't really want to be a head coach. He's going to be a popular name. The Packers defense has taken huge strides the last couple of years, but Hafley is the one name on there that at least piques my interest a little bit if the Titans really are interested in him.
Well, there is a reason that Hafley left Boston College, because the sentiment among coaching candidates in college and NFL is it's a lot easier to coach in the NFL right now, because when you're a college head coach, not only are you having to worry about the football aspect, which is already enough as it is, but you're having to worry about high school recruiting, transfer portal, NIL. There's I like to tell this story, but Shane Beamer at South Carolina, he one time said in an interview that a majority of the time is not actually his time is not spent actually coaching football, but it's in booster meetings and trying to figure out how to fundraise for his team, and he has to delegate the football responsibilities to assistants. That's why Jeff Hafley left Boston College to go to Green Bay, and he's not the only one. There have been Gus Malzahn going to Florida State to be the offensive. It's happening a lot. So
right, and we saw it with Chip Kelly too.
Right.
He left a head coaching
Exactly.
spot at UCLA to go be an offensive coordinator at Ohio State. So I do see what your point there, that maybe Hafley would be more interested in an NFL head coaching job where
It's
you
a lot
don't have to
easier.
worry about. You're not worried about retaining your own roster,
It's a
and
lot
recruiting
easier.
high schoolers and recording the portal. So Hafley, I think that would be a guy that I could get behind. If they feel like he's the right guy to come in and build this culture and command this room, it's a guy with head coaching experience. And I think the upside is still there because he has not been a head coach at the NFL level. And, you look at some of the other options out there. We've talked a lot about Arthur Smith and Robert Saleh and Matt Nagy. Those are guys who have failed as NFL head coaches. And that doesn't mean that they're going to be failures the second time around, but at least you can look and say, well, it didn't work out there. Let's find out why. With Hafley, I think there's still the upside of a first-time head coach, despite him having some experience in that field. The other options out there that Deanna Rossini put up is Jesse Minter. That's been a popular name. Chris Shula of the Rams. I think I'd be okay with those
Chris
hires.
Shula's a stud.
Right. Like, I think those guys, at the very least, you can tell that they're hiring based on ceiling. If I was Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker, I would hire based on floor. And that might sound stupid. I want the head coach to come in and raise the floor of this team again and not have any chance of being a complete disaster. Right?
Yeah, and that's what scares me about Nagy, because I know that he's a failed head coach, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to fail again. But he doesn't. I don't think he calls plays for the Chiefs, right?
He does not. No.
That's Andy Reid. So that's one of my biggest pushbacks. And then on top of that, I just can't get that stench of what happened in Chicago out of my mouth. So that scares me. But I really am intrigued by guys like Jesse Minter, Chris Shula, Jeff Hafley, because I know that they're not necessarily offensive minded, and that's okay. But I know that they're alpha personalities and they're leaders of men. So that gives me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I think with what comments we've heard from Mike Borgonzi of, we want somebody to come in and be a leader. Doesn't matter offense, doesn't matter defense. We'll figure out the offensive staff and who's going to develop Cam Ward. But we need someone who will come in here and can command this locker room and build a culture. So defensive guys kind of make sense. A lot of the offensive head coaching candidates are going to be your guru types who are supposed to be these offensive geniuses, but you have no idea if they can command a locker room. Some of them can. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay have obviously proven that they can be great head coaches as well as great offensive play callers. But defensive guys, by and large, I think are more known as being football guys who are going to come in and they're going to be the leader of men. And Vrabel's the example. It doesn't have to be a Vrabel-like guy, but those guys that you mentioned, I think Minter and Shula, I could get behind those. I think those would be good options for the Titans, along with Hafley.
But we got to figure out, too, if Jesse Minter is going to be interested in taking the Michigan head coaching job, too, because he's in serious contention for that.
Right. The Michigan job being open is definitely a little bit of a hitch in the Titans giddy up here, because some of these guys, Minter especially, with the ties he has to Michigan, coaching under Jim Harbaugh there, could end up moving that. Yesterday, Marcus Freeman, I saw on game day morning that he is going to be a top candidate for the Giants job. So then maybe the Notre Dame job opens up. The coaching carousel in college continuing to affect the coaching carousel in the NFL. I don't know a ton about Matt Burke for the Texans. I really like DeMeco Ryans, and that defense obviously has been very, very good this year. So I would have to do more research in there. The one name I don't want, and it's really not even his fault, it's more guilty by association, is Lou Anarumo. I can't get behind. You just fired Zach Taylor's old offensive coordinator. Let's bring in the defensive coordinator from the same staff that he fired last year because that defense was atrocious. Lou Anarumo is a longtime coach. I'm sure he knows what he's doing, but I struggle to see how the Titans front office could sell that hire to the fan base.
That and Matt Nagy are two names that I don't want. Now, with Mike McCarthy, that name wasn't mentioned on the list, but if he happens to be in contention for this job, I've said that if you hire Mike McCarthy, he'll come and he'll establish some stability. He may even get this team to the playoff, but nothing more than that. I don't think he would ever get this team to the Super Bowl, but we're talking about the Titans. We don't need to be talking about Super Bowl right now. So as long as you get him and he's a temporary option, that's fine. But I hope that the Titans are not looking at Mike McCarthy to be their long-term solution.
I think Mike McCarthy would be my favorite hire because of what I was talking about, raising the floor, getting this to stop being a dysfunctional organization. And I know Amy has a lot of the blame for that, but if you bring in football guys who know what they're doing, Borgonzi seems to have proven that he knows what he's doing. When he speaks, I think you can see the vision that he has for this team. Mike McCarthy, you bring him in, you don't have to worry about all of the outside stuff because he's done it for so many years. I would like Mike McCarthy. And like you're saying, maybe he doesn't get you to a Super Bowl, but if he's getting you in the conversation and you build up the roster enough that Cam Ward is your franchise quarterback and you feel like you've got the team, then maybe you go for the home run and you say, you know what, Mike, you're not doing enough for us. We're going to go try and find somebody who can get us to the promised land. But for right now, the Titans have to be able to get this team back to being respectable in the league. And I think Mike McCarthy could be the answer there.
And if that's what they're the mindset, then I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah. And again, it may be a short-term option. It may be a longer-term option. I don't know. But we're only a couple weeks away from seeing at least getting the Titans to show their hand a little bit of what they're thinking when it comes to the head coach. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We talked about him a lot in the first hour, and Trey has called in. Trey, thanks for calling. What you got for us today?
Good morning. Good morning. How y'all doing?
Doing great.
Hey, I just wanted to say that I'm happy that we won the game Sunday. It was, what I expected us to do is to go out there and play some meaningful football. As far as camp progression, I think that he's getting better. And, nobody's talking about Mike McCoy as far as, being, in the forefront of the head coaching job. But if he goes out there and win these 2 games, you got to give him some love. You know what I'm saying? Like, he took basically nothing and, win 3 or 4 games, and I don't want us to go out there, trying to find somebody with a losing record. If he doesn't get the job with a losing record that hasn't been in the league a couple of years, I don't want a person like that coming into this organization. And I know nobody wants that. I want somebody that's going to come in here that's a proven winner / quarterback trainer. And that's hard to find. Corey Curtis talked about it. That's hard to find, but that's what I want. And I would, give Mike McCoy a shot. And don't be surprised if they keep Mike McCoy as the head coach of the Titans. Just don't be surprised. Just don't be. And I love y'all. Y'all have a good day. Take care. Merry Christmas.
Jake, was it you that said if they keep Mike McCoy that you'd stop being a Titans fan?
Yes, that is what I said.
I'm with you.
And
I'm with you on that.
It's gotten better, right? Like he's won 2 out of the last 3 games, but please, Mike McCoy should not get an interview. He really shouldn't.
There's no way. No way.
It's nothing against him. The Titans have a full world of candidates in front of them. Don't just take the guy who's easy because he's already in the building. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Trey at least giving credit to Cam there. Said he's getting better. So, step in the right direction.
I wonder if he watched the game yesterday.
I don't know. We should have asked him that. We should have gotten some details on whether he watched or listened or how much he watched. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Looking for a great spot to pregame before the final Titans home game of the season? You can stop by John Bon Jovi's and pregame with 1025 The Game. JBJ's has the best food on Broadway, cold beer and cocktails and stunning skyline views, including 2 epic rooftops. The pregame show is brought to you by Tennessee Brewworks and Old National Bank. We'll keep looking around the Titans coaching search on the other side. A couple of names have been brought up on the text line. We'll get to those coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Games presented by Twin Peaks and Parman Tractor and Equipment. Tonight on Sports Talk 8:30, it's Washington State and Utah State in the famous Idaho Potato Bowl at 1 p.m. For a list of games carried on the Game Nashville Sports Network, visit thegamenashville.com/bowl games. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday. Titans 26-9 winners yesterday over the Kansas City Chiefs. Titans now 3-12 on the year with 2 more games to go before they wrap up Cam Ward's rookie season. Mike McCoy did just speak at the podium. Wasn't really much there. No injuries to report, or at least no updates on injuries. Did make a point that Cam Ward played great yesterday and actually checked into one of those plays that ended up being a big play downfield. So not much from Mike McCoy. Titans getting ready for the Saints coming up on Sunday, final home game of the season. Over the weekend, Diana Rossini putting out the report of 6 names that the Titans could be interested in as they get ready to make a new head coaching hire. The names: Matt Nagy, Jeff Hafley, Jesse Minter, Lou Anarumo, the Colts offensive coordinator, and former Bengals defensive coordinator, Chris Shula of the Rams, and Matt Burke of the Texans. That's obviously not the full list, but it's an interesting group that includes 5 defensive guys and only 1 offensive coordinator. And only 2 guys with any kind of head coaching experience, at least at the college or pro levels, in Jeff Hafley and Matt Nagy. So maybe not the type of names that we were expecting to see. Obviously, we don't really know how much of those that is actually accurate as the Titans get ready to start requesting interviews in the next couple of weeks. A couple names on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 2765 said Denard Wilson. And TD and I have had this conversation plenty of times over the last few months of, does Denard Wilson stay on staff? And I think that is a fair conversation to have. If you bring in an offensive-minded coach, do you stick with Denard Wilson and keep some familiarity in that room? That's a fair conversation to have. I don't think Denard Wilson's ready to be a head coach quite yet. I mean, has the defense been that good this year that you're thinking that other teams would be looking at Denard Wilson as a head coaching candidate? No, it's not like he's going to get requests from the Giants or the Falcons if they fire Raheem Moore. Like, Denard Wilson has been fine this year. He's been dealt a tough hand with the team trading away 2 of his starting cornerbacks and injuries and everything. But I think you do have to look at the market. Right? We talk about this with Cam Ward being drafted 1st overall last year. It's not like the Titans were the only team in the league that wanted Cam Ward 1st overall. The Giants wouldn't have tried to trade up if they didn't feel like he could be a franchise quarterback. It's kind of the same thing with coaches. If no one else is looking at a guy, maybe you shouldn't be looking at a guy. And it's not like Denard Wilson's inbox is going to be filled with interview requests at the end of this season.
No, he's not ready, because we still don't even know if he's a good defensive coordinator, because, I mean, look how many DBs that the Titans have had either injured or have traded away. Denard Wilson doesn't have a lot to work with at all to begin with, so we don't really know. We can't really gauge how good of a defensive coordinator is. I think that making the jump to head coach would be far too early.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Denard Wilson staying on staff as the DC, perfect conversation to have. If you bring in an offensive coach and they feel like Denard has done a good job and his familiarity with the building and with the players can help you, great. I can get behind that. Not as a head coach. Michael and Madison puts out there, and this will be a popular name if it ends up happening. If the Ravens fail to make the playoffs, do they let go of John Harbaugh? And that one is looking more and more likely by the week. We were having the Mike Tomlin conversation 2 weeks ago before they put together back-to-back big wins, including one in Detroit yesterday, and now they are on the doorstep of clinching the division. Mike Tomlin, once again, will not have a losing season. 19 years as the head coach of the Steelers and still has not had a losing season. But John Harbaugh, I could see it, especially with the way that game ended yesterday. You're up 24-13. Lamar Jackson gets hurt, and you don't put Derrick Henry out on the field. Like, isn't that something the head coach, like, I don't know if the offensive coordinator is making the play call, but when you don't see 22 out there for a couple of plays, maybe you should be overriding and making sure that you get, the finisher, Derrick Henry, back out on the field. And John Harbaugh could get let go. And if he gets let go, he immediately becomes candidate number one for pretty much everybody who has a head coaching opening.
Oh, 100%. And you're right about the Derrick Henry. I don't understand not having him in late in the game. I know he had the fumble, and it's so weird that Derrick Henry has had a fumbling problem this year. It's odd because that was never really the case during his time in Nashville, but he still had 2 touchdowns yesterday. It was great on the ground. I mean, just an absolute hammer to the defense yesterday. So to not have him in at that point in the game yesterday was very odd.
That is true. He has had a fumbling issue, and that game against the Bills in week 1, you could pretty much point to his fumble as the reason they lost that game. But still, and I know we're talking about John Harbaugh making these mistakes and it's coaching malpractice. Why would anyone want to hire him? He still has the track record that I think everybody in the league would say that's a guy who can take us from Titans have 3 wins, Giants have 2 wins. Let's go get a guy who has proven that he can have his team consistently in the playoff conversation, has won a Super Bowl. I think John Harbaugh would be a home run hire.
If the Ravens were to fire him too, I mean, here's the Ravens have had a ton of injuries this year, a ton, and Lamar Jackson has missed a fair amount of time this year. So it's really hard to overcome injuries, especially when the AFC is as wide open as we've seen it in a long time.
I don't think they're going to fire him, but it's getting more likely by the week. And we'll see if the Ravens, maybe if his message is just getting stale and they want to switch things up. Looking at the openings that could be out there, already the Titans and Giants are open. I think Vegas is going to open. I think Pete Carroll, it was a failed experiment to bring him back. I think it's time for him to retire. I think Vegas is going to let go of him. Stefanski, probably gone in Cleveland. Does that seem fair to say?
Yeah, especially after yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, I think Stefanski's probably gone. Jets aren't going to fire Glenn. I think that came out yesterday that they feel good about him coming back for year 2. I also saw that Arizona apparently isn't likely to make a change, which shocks me because I think Jonathan Gannon is just not good.
You could have made the argument that he should have been fired after the last season.
Right. And they're 3-12. I would guess that he gets fired, but
and then also not to mention what's going to happen with Kyler Murray, because I have a good feeling he's not going to be a Cardinal next year.
Yeah, I think that's safe to say that they're going to be moving on at quarterback. Maybe you just clean house. And I like Monty Ossenfort, former Titans front office guy who's their GM, and I think he's done a decent job, but I think the coach and the quarterback both need to go. So that's 5 jobs opening up, and then the Bengals apparently aren't going to move on from Zach Taylor. Maybe Miami opens, maybe Atlanta. So I think you're looking at 6 to 8 openings for head coaches. If John Harbaugh comes free, I don't know if the Titans would be at the very top of his list, but at the very least, it can't hurt to kick the tires and see if you can get a Super Bowl winning head coach to come over and try and fix this franchise. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Our phone line is driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. More Titans talk coming up later in the show, but we did have a big weekend of college football. First round of the college football playoff. Had some very good games that we'll talk about next. Also had some games that were decided early, as we all expected. 615-737-1025. 1025. The Game is your home for the Liberty Mutual Music City Bowl on Tuesday, December 30th. The Music City Bowl coverage is presented by Pickers Vodka and Beyond the Edge Sports Bar. Again, Ron Burgundy, just reading whatever's on the prompter. 615-737-1025. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you. Just a few days before Christmas. Another show coming up tomorrow. Nick Frazier will be with us for Tony Tuesdays. And we'll have lots to talk about getting ready for a full weekend of football, including some not-so-great games on Thursday. But we'll save that for tomorrow. Titans 26-9 winners over Kansas City yesterday. Titans have the Chiefs number. It does make it easier when Chris Oladokun is playing quarterback on the other side. We'll talk more about the Titans later on in the show, but we did have the first weekend of the college football playoff on Friday and Saturday this weekend. And got to say, the games that we expected to be good lived up to the hype. And Alabama and Oklahoma ended up being a really fun Friday night game. Oklahoma runs out to a 17-0 lead. Parker, I don't know about you. I know you're a little bit more of a college football sicko than I am. When it was 17-0, I was one more touchdown from just turning it off and going to bed because it looked like it was going to get out of hand quick.
I watched the whole thing.
No, I did too. I did. I kept it going. I didn't know if there was any thought from you of turning it off when it looked like it was going to be a blowout.
No, I didn't, because I didn't know if Oklahoma was going to be able to sustain that offensively, because their offense hasn't been able to sustain much really since John Mateer suffered the hand injury. But it turned out to be one of the better games of the weekend, and I'm sure we'll get to the other ones a little bit later.
Yeah, Alabama comes back to win that one against the Sooners. Some missed field goals late didn't allow Oklahoma to get back into that game. But the play that changed everything, of course, was the pick six from John Mateer. I don't know what he was thinking there. Clearly was not on the same page with his receivers, because the receiver kept running up the sideline. Mateer threw it like he was going to break out, and waiting right there for a pick six. Alabama took it back. That made it 17-14, and the Tide really never looked back. Latsier Brooks, what a game from the true freshman for Alabama. We talk a lot about these college wide receivers and who could end up being coming out in the draft in the next couple of years. Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith got all the headlines last year they're on the cover of College Football 26 and expected to be these first-round guys in 2027. Look at the 2028 draft. I know it's early, but Malachi Toney for Miami, who ended up scoring the game-winning touchdown for the Canes on Saturday, and then Latsier Brooks, who had a breakout game on Friday night against Oklahoma. That could be the top two guys you're looking at in 2028, despite both guys being maybe on the smaller side. I think Brooks is only, 5'8", 5'9"?
Yeah, he's not a very big guy. But the receiving core for Alabama was supposed to be one of the strengths, because offensively, Alabama had 28 rushing yards, which is obviously much better than -4, which they had in the SEC championship game. But if they were going to win this, it was going to be on the back of Ty Simpson and the passing game. So when you have Ryan Williams, who actually leads the country in drops, he has 10 this year, which is very uncharacteristic from what we saw from his true freshman season. But when you have guys like Latsier Brooks as a true freshman, who I would argue, that pick six really changed the momentum of the game, but that 4th and 2 going for it when Latsier Brooks got into the end zone, I think really that play changed the course of the game, and that was on the back of a true freshman. So him and Jeremy Bernard really stepping up in the passing game when Ryan Williams really hasn't been there much this year. Huge credit to them.
Yeah, Bernard made that huge play late in the game to help the Tide seal it with that final touchdown. So, and Ty Simpson, we had the whole conversation last week of what should Titans fans be rooting for in the college football playoff. And of course, you look at some of the guys that the Titans could draft this weekend. Miami and Ohio State, or sorry, not this weekend, New Year's, Miami and Ohio State. There are Titans targets galore in that game with Reuben Bain and Carnell Tate and Arvell Reese, maybe even Caleb Downs, even though I think you go for a more premium position. But also, you want to root for the quarterbacks to continue to show that they are worthy of being picked in the top 5. Maybe not quite as important anymore with the Titans winning yesterday, but Ty Simpson looked like a guy that has an NFL future at the very least on Friday. I don't know if that means that he comes out this year and he's going to be a top 5 pick, but after a month where scouts, fans cooled on Ty Simpson, I think that was a performance that at least gets him back into that conversation of, okay, this could be an NFL guy in the future.
Yeah, and I think NFL scouts too got to understand the fact that he was not playing healthy. He got a
No.
lot of different shots in his back, and I know he has some hip things going on as well. But there are also a fair amount of NFL draft scouts that believe Dante Moore and Ty Simpson are the best two quarterbacks in this class, and then Fernando Mendoza being the third. So there are still a lot of people that are high on Ty Simpson, but I thought the way that obviously no one's going to be at 100% at this point in the year, but Ty Simpson is really, really banged up, but he still threw the ball very, very well. And I believe a lot of NFL draft scouts obviously watching this game to see how he did. And I thought that he proved that he does have a very bright future ahead of him if he continues on this course.
Yeah, it was a great game, and Alabama gets the win, 34-24. You mentioned Dante Moore. That game, you said that you thought JMU would lose by 50, and
the old backdoor cover.
It was getting close there for a little bit. James Madison with a little bit of a late run for pride to make that a 17-point game. 51-34 was the final. But you mentioned Dante Moore. What a start to that game for Dante Moore. I want to say at one point he was 10 for 11 for 215 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown, just carving up that JMU defense. Not unexpected, but that's what a guy who is a top 5 NFL prospect should look like when he's playing a team from the Sun Belt.
Yeah, and you got to give credit to his offensive line too, because he had all day to throw in the pocket. And the amount of injuries that Oregon has had at wide receiver, you think about DeCorian Moore, who was the number 1 true freshman wide receiver coming out of last year's recruiting class, Gary Bryant and Evan Stewart. I mean, so many injuries to their receiving core, and they still have guys stepping up. Malik Benson, who actually got this year because of Diego Pavia's lawsuit. He really stepped up. Jeremiah McClellan, Jamari Johnson, they have athletic tight ends, Kenyon Sadiq to throw to. So he got a lot of help from his receivers, got a lot of help from the offensive line, but he was dicing up the Duke's defense as expected.
Yeah, Oregon moves on. They'll take on Texas Tech. 2 other games this weekend. And, Ole Miss Tulane went about as well as most people expected. I did in our Monday headlines. I picked Tulane to win. More wishful thinking that we'd actually get one.
You were trying to be bold. It's okay.
On Saturday afternoon and evening, I wanted so bad to have a game that actually was competitive. Luckily, the NFL stepped up for us with that Bears-Packers finish, so we at least got something to pay attention to. But yeah, Tulane did not hang in there very long against Ole Miss. It took less than a minute for Ole Miss to take the lead, and they never
3 plays. 3 plays.
Yes, 3 plays. They were up 14-0 after 7 offensive plays.
Crazy I believe their first 3 drives that Ole Miss scored took 5 plays or less.
Yeah, it was that was not as close as I hoped it would be. I thought maybe Tulane would show up, and they'd lost earlier in the season. They still had their head coach, but Ole Miss took care of business. They move on to face Georgia. But probably the best game of the weekend in terms of finish, Miami, Texas A&M. Obviously, no one scored until the third quarter, but still a very interesting finish down there in College Station. We'll talk about it next. I did want to mention, as Sarek Emmy on the YouTube chat said, we also had 2 exciting Predators wins this weekend. Do want to shout out the Preds. They sweep the back-to-back at home against Toronto and New York. Now have won 9 out of 13. We're not going to get too much into the Preds today. Titans win, college football playoffs. But tomorrow we will talk some Predators as they start a 7-game road trip tomorrow. Out there in Minnesota. So this could be a turning point of the season. Preds are right back in the thick of things for a wild card spot after a great weekend inside Bridgestone Arena. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll wrap up hour number 2 on the other side. Talk Miami and Texas A&M as the Hurricanes escape College Station with a win. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on your Monday morning. Wrapping up the second hour of the show. Coming up in hour number 3, we'll continue to look at the college football playoff. The quarterfinal matchups are set. And also we'll get back into the Titans after their 26-9 win over Alabama, or excuse me, over Kansas City yesterday.
Alabama.
Stealing from the Chase and Big Joe show. Alabama moving on. We'll talk about Alabama coming up in the next segment, then the Titans later on in the final hour. But Miami and Texas A&M, best game of the weekend in college football. And it didn't start that way. Scoreless at halftime, defensive struggle, but Miami able to survive. Malachi Toney scores the game-winning touchdown, and the Canes pick off Marcel Reed in the end zone to secure the victory. That was a hard-fought game, and I don't know how good either of those two teams are. And if I'm looking at these quarterfinals, I really think that Ohio State is the team I feel most confident in to win next weekend. Miami's good. They've got a ton of talent. And I mentioned earlier, Ruben Bain heard all the talk about his draft stock falling because of his short arms and then went out and got 3 sacks and looked dominant against Texas A&M. But I just don't see Miami stacking up with Ohio State. But credit to them. That is a tough place to go win, and they're able to get out of there with a victory against Texas A&M. A&M, it's got to be a strange feeling for those fans because it ended with such a sputter, right? You win your first 11 games of the season, but you lose to your hated rival in the final game of the year. You get into the playoffs, you lose at home, season over. Like, I wonder how Aggies fans feel about this year, knowing all of the success they had. Of course, you go 11-1, you make the playoffs. It's a good year, but the way it ended has to leave a bitter taste in those fans' mouths.
The common denominator is the offense not playing to its capability because they were multifaceted through their first 11 games, meaning that Marcel Reed could beat you through the air. That's what they did in South Bend and Notre Dame early on in the season. But they could also run the ball because they have 3 very capable running backs that got banged up against Miami, and then they have a very, very good and deep offensive line. But the common denominator is Marcel Reed throwing 2 interceptions in the Texas game, and they lost, threw 2 interceptions in the Miami game and lost, and also they could not run the ball effectively as well in those games. So that's really the common denominator is the offense, because the defense played about as good as you can. So it really fell on the offense.
Yeah, I mean, the A&M defense didn't give up a touchdown until under 2 minutes left in the game. You know, you would have loved to be able to hold Miami to 3 there and see if you could go down and, you know, at the very least, you've got a chance to kick the field goal and send it to overtime. But unable to do that, and Miami ends up pulling out the win 10-3. Miami moving on to face Ohio State. And the big takeaway from a lot of people after this weekend is that the committee got it right. Alabama and Miami got in, and there was a lot of question marks about whether they deserved it. And when Oklahoma goes up 17-0 on the Tide, people were starting to take their victory laps up there in South Bend of, oh, you let this team in after they got blown out in the SEC championship game, and we should be in there instead of them, and we would beat Oklahoma. Well, Alabama roars back and wins that game on the road. Miami goes into College Station and wins their game on the road. I don't want to say the committee got it right because, again, it's like you can always look in hindsight. Did Oklahoma really deserve to be in there, right? Like, I think that's a question you should be asking. They were 10-2. Their best win was Alabama, but did they really look all that impressive towards the end of the season? Missouri and LSU both, took them down to the final couple plays of those games. So I look at it and say, yeah, I mean, the committee probably looks pretty good right now because the 2 teams that were controversial that they put in got wins. But I think it was just such a close year from, I guess you could say, the 6th team to the 14th team. I don't know if there's a whole lot of separation as you look at it between, Ole Miss to Texas A&M, to Oklahoma, Alabama, Miami, and even into the teams that got left out, Notre Dame and Texas and Vanderbilt. I think it was just a really close group, and you were splitting hairs. And so you were kind of bound for maybe one of these teams going on the road that was seated lower to go in and get an upset, and Alabama and Miami both were able to.
Well, I will never really use playoff results to go back in hindsight and say, okay, well, this team shouldn't have been in, because with SMU
Right.
last year, they got blown out in Penn State, but that doesn't mean that they didn't deserve to be in, because they did. They were 11-1. They played in their conference championship game, and before the conference championship game, they were 7th, I believe. So they were already
Yeah.
within the field. So if they didn't play that game, they would have gotten in. So it's the same thing with Alabama. They were already in the field. Their resume was significantly better than Notre Dame's. And if they didn't play in the SEC championship game, they would have been in the field. So really, they shouldn't have been punished. But then Oklahoma beat Alabama, and that was probably their best win. But they also have wins over Michigan. They had a win over Tennessee and Neyland. So there's still some impressive wins. So I would argue yes. Plus, Oklahoma's defense is up there with Georgia for best in the SEC. The offense, on the other hand, not as much, but John Mateer, at least to start out the game, looked like the John Mateer of old.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think you can't use the results in the playoffs to justify or create controversy around what the committee decided to do. The committee's process clearly has its flaws and I still cannot get over that they just arbitrarily moved Alabama ahead of Notre Dame ahead of the conference championship games, because they did that solely so they wouldn't have to have it viewed as a punishment if Alabama lost, which they did. And they left Alabama in. The process has a lot of flaws for the college football playoff selection, but I do think that the result usually ends up being what it's supposed to be. And we got good games between those close ones. The conversation a lot of people are going to want to have is, do the group of 5 teams deserve to be in there? Because once again, Tulane and JMU, yeah, sure, JMU showed a little bit more fight than we expected down the stretch, but those teams clearly were not in the same class as Ole Miss and Oregon. And I think the calls are going to start to get a little bit stronger of, should there be separate playoffs for power conference teams and group of 5 teams? I think that's a long way away, but this year definitely puts another check in the box of maybe that becomes a thing 4, 5, 6 years down the road.
Yeah, and I think everybody is kind of on the same page, but I do not expect whoever's in charge of making this playoff to catch on, because they're always late to the process. They're always late to the party. So, but everybody who watched those games knew that James Madison is not playing the same sport as Georgia. Tulane is not playing the same sport as Ohio State. In high school football, you have 6A through 1A, and then Division 2, 1A through AAA, and they all compete for their own state championships. It doesn't make sense. And Nick Saban brought up the point, and some group of 5 fans, it had some backlash to it, but we don't put the best minor league baseball team in the playoffs for the World Series. That's what we're doing with this. We need a separate group of 5 playoff. We need to give them, this is a pro group of 5 idea, giving them a national championship that they're actually capable of winning. And I don't understand why people aren't on board.
Right. We're split into 2 levels already with the FBS and the FCS. I think there's a pretty clear split when you look at the power conference teams and the group of 5 teams. I think this will be resolved when the SEC and the Big Ten truly become their final forms of, when Florida State and Clemson and a couple other ACC teams make the move to one of those conferences, and you end up with 2 20-team super conferences of the Big Ten and the SEC. I think eventually you see those 2 conferences split and basically become the AFC and the NFC, and they'll play their Super Bowl every year. And then the rest of college football can have their own tournament. I think that's where this is headed. Maybe not imminently, but within the next 10 years, I think the SEC and the Big Ten will be their own little super league, and everybody else will be playing somewhere else.
Which is really unfortunate, because if we're talking about a divide between the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12, what do you think that does to the group of 5? NIL and transfer portal have already created the gap, and it's just further widening. And I hate when people use basketball logic for football logic, because in football, you physically get to assault somebody and it's legal. In basketball, you do that, it's a foul. So it's 2 different sports. There are going to be Cinderellas in basketball. That's why everybody loves it. The tournament is centered around Cinderella's making a run. In football, the best chance any Cinderella had was in the 4-team era when Cincinnati made it, because if they happened to beat Alabama that one year, they're in the national championship game. Well, if James Madison were to beat Oregon, okay, now you get Texas Tech. If you beat Texas Tech, you got to play Indiana. If you beat Indiana, that's just not going to happen.
Right. There's almost zero chance, I won't say zero, but about as close to zero as you can get, of a group of 5 team running the table and winning 4 straight games to win the national championship. It really is just a token invite to the dance. And you're right. I think there's a lot that needs to be sorted out of which bottom level ACC Big 12 teams are going to fall back into the group of 5. And how is that all going to work out? Because there are a lot of teams in the ACC and the Big 12 that are really good at other sports, like in basketball. Are we going to have Kansas basketball and Duke basketball playing in an inferior league in 10 years? I think eventually you've got to split up football from the rest of the other sports and have somebody in charge of football, have somebody in charge of everything else, because there's no reason to have Rutgers and USC in the same conference for volleyball, even though it might make sense for football.
I hate that this is the direction we're moving. It's terrible. It's terrible. I'm depressed. I'm depressed now, Jake.
Well, we'll try and cheer you up on the other side. We do have our 4 quarterfinal matchups in the college football playoff. We'll take an early look ahead at those: Oregon, Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana, and then Georgia, Ole Miss in an SEC matchup, Ohio State and Miami. We'll talk about all of them starting off hour number 3, then back into the Titans. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Final hour on this Monday. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you, broadcasting live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans get the win yesterday, 26-9 over the Kansas City Chiefs. Cam Ward, likely his best game as a Titan so far, 15 games into his rookie season, 3 straight with multi-touchdown passes. So it has been a very good December so far for Cam Ward. We'll get back into the Titans coming up in the bottom of the hour. But back to the college football playoff. We went through the results from the opening round. The favorites winning in the ones that we expected them to. And then in the close games, the 7-10, the 8-9, the road teams go in and get wins. Alabama over Oklahoma, Miami over Texas Tech. So we have our quarterfinal matchups. Let's start in the top of the bracket here, Parker. Oregon and Texas Tech. I think that is the possible game of the year. I am so excited to see what these two teams look like paired up against each other. Texas Tech in that defense. Can they slow down Dante Moore in this offense? And Kenyon Sadiq, maybe the best tight end outside of Nashville in college football. It's him and Stowers for number 1. So I am really excited for this one. I picked the Ducks, but it wouldn't shock me if the Red Raiders are able to win this one.
No, the line is the same as Oklahoma and Alabama at 1.5, which is saying right. It's basically a pick 'em between the two. I'm also leaning Oregon in this one. I feel like Oregon has a more complete football team offensively and defensively. Texas Tech's defense is top 10 in the country, but their offense at times has really, really struggled in the red zone. So that's going to be an area of focus. If they're going to want to beat Oregon, you got to get 7s instead of 3s, which the last 2 times they played BYU, a lot of red zone trips resulted in field goals, and those outcomes could have been a lot worse if they were to convert some of those field goals into touchdowns. That's going to be the focus against the Ducks.
Yeah, and you just wonder with Texas Tech, and again, not to make this a Big Ten SEC superiority conversation again, but you look at Texas Tech's schedule, and have they really been tested like anything like what they're going to see with Oregon? I mean, Utah, they went 10-2. It's a good Utah team. Texas Tech went on the road and beat them 34-10. You look at BYU, the 2 times they played them, they were able to win, held the Cougars to just 7 points. BYU, a team that only lost 2 games all season. So those are good wins, but are they seeing anything talent-wise like they're going to see from Oregon in the Big 12? I mean, some of their other wins this year, Houston, Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State, UCF, West Virginia, those teams are just not quite on par with some of even the bad teams that Oregon is seeing in the Big Ten. And then their non-conference slate was Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Kent State, and Oregon State. So this is a Texas Tech team. Yes, they've played some good teams in the Big 12, in Utah and BYU. But I do wonder if they're going to be a little bit out-talented by Oregon coming up next week.
The team most similar to Oregon that Texas Tech has seen has probably been Utah, because the defense has been really good under Morgan Scalley, and Utah can run the football. Oregon has been relying a lot on the run with the receiver injuries they've had, and obviously that defense is going to be really good under Tosh Lupoi. So that's probably the most similar team, and Texas Tech beat that team 34-10 back in, I believe it was late September. So it's been a while. So to answer your question, no, they have. This is going to be the most tested that they've been at this point. I still think that they're going to compete very well, and you're right. This does have a chance to be the game of the year.
I'm excited for this one because, again, like Texas Tech, I'm in wait-and-see mode with them. I'm not trying to say they can't win the game, but it's definitely a different caliber of opponent they're going to see than anything that they faced so far this season. The other game on that side of the bracket, and Parker, we both said last week that I think anybody on this side, with the exception of JMU, could win or could go to the national championship. And if you get into the game, you got a chance to win it. So Alabama was able to beat Oklahoma. Texas Tech, Oregon, Alabama, Indiana, I would not be shocked to see any of them playing for a national championship. Alabama, we picked against them early. Adam from Portland pointed out that he said Alabama is going to make us look stupid and they're going to go on a run. Do we think Alabama can be the dark horse and pull off the upset, or does Indiana prove themselves and avoid having back-to-back years where the number 1 overall seed loses their first game of the playoff?
If Alabama is able to look similar to what they were like at midway point through the season, yes, because they need to get healthy with Jam Miller. Jam Miller was banged up, did not play a whole lot versus Oklahoma. If they're able to get him healthy, if they're able to get a healthier Josh Cuevas, he was able to play versus Oklahoma, but he is a huge difference maker for their offense. Their offensive line needs to play better. So if they're able to get to the point where they were just rattling off wins over ranked opponents about midway through the season, then yes, they have a chance of upsetting Indiana, which is crazy.
Yeah,
I just said Alabama upsetting Indiana.
Right. If you had said that even 3 years ago, people would have thought you were crazy. But that is where we are. Indiana is the number 1 overall seed. Alabama in the Rose Bowl coming up on New Year's Day. And I'm actually kind of leaning towards Alabama here. I don't know why. And again, doubt Curt Cignetti at your own risk. Maybe it's just something with the bye week and all 4 teams that got byes losing last year. And I do have to wonder if that plays a role. Some of these teams that got byes, you look at, so I guess all 4 teams that got byes, they played in their conference championship. So that was the first weekend of December. It'll be almost a month between games. I do worry a little bit about Indiana being able to come out and play with an Alabama team that is more talented than them. You can't deny that. If you're looking at future NFL players, Alabama's got way more of them than Indiana does. And an Alabama team that kind of feels like it got its swagger back in that game against Oklahoma. You go down 17-0, you roar back, you win by 10 points. I think Alabama is feeling themselves a little bit. Is Indiana, having not played in a month, going to be able to match that intensity when they hit the field in the Rose Bowl?
That's the thing that concerns me, because every team that had a bye in the playoffs last year ended up losing because they had so much time off. Now it's very early. That was the first time that we'd ever seen the 12-team playoff. Will it play out the same way this time around? I don't know. Oregon, on the other hand, that they had the pleasure of playing Ohio State in the quarterfinal round last year and ended up getting buzzsawed, but they also didn't play a game since the Big Ten championship when they played Penn State. So they had so much time off.
Yeah.
This time around, Dan Lanning actually hosted a mock game before the James Madison game because he wanted to keep his team in a rhythm. So I wonder if that is going to benefit Alabama versus Indiana, but also doubt Curt Cignetti at your own risk.
I know. And I will say that every time I think about picking against them because he seems to make me look stupid every single time. But it'll never change because it's all about the TV money. And New Year's Eve, New Year's Day is where you're going to get the TV money by putting these games. But if this happens again, where a lot of the teams that get byes lose, I don't see it being all of them again. But if 2 or 3 of the teams that got byes lose, you'd think they maybe have to look at the schedule here and say, do we really want these teams that get byes having 3.5 weeks off between games? Like, most of these teams are playing on New Year's Day. So you look at Indiana, their last game was December 6th. They're not playing until January 1st. That's almost 4 full weeks. If it happens again, I do wonder if they look at it. They probably won't, because again, when are you going to get the most eyes on your product? Over the holidays, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and it's never going to change. But it could play a big factor, especially I think in that Indiana-Alabama game.
Yeah, and this is what ideally I would like to do, is I would like to move the playoff right after conference championships, so that way we're wrapped up by New Year's how it traditionally used to be, because Joey McGuire, the head coach of Texas Tech, made a great point. We shouldn't be playing football games in the second semester when kids are coming back for the spring semester. It just doesn't make much sense calendar-wise when you have the portal opening up, you still have some high school recruiting to do, you're getting ready to start spring ball. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Ohio State, by the time they were wrapped up after winning the national championships, they were about a month away from starting spring practice, which it should never be the case. So that's ideally how I'd like to fix it.
Yeah, I wonder if you could move up the first round of the playoffs to the weekend after conference championship games, but then you run into Army Navy and the Heisman ceremony. There's so many tangled webs that you have to work through, but I agree with you. I think it would be better if we got back to the point where the semifinals are being played New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and then the championship is that first week in January as it's been in the past. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to text or call. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Would love to hear from you. We'll continue talking about the college football playoff quarterfinals on the other side. Do we have a collision course for Georgia and Ohio State coming up? We'll get to it next, then back into the Titans. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you for a few more segments here on this Monday. We'll be back tomorrow getting you set for the holidays. Parker getting all of us in the spirit pretty much for the last 2 weeks. Done a nice job.
I hope Connor's listening.
Yeah, Connor was being a Grinch on Friday and didn't want to hear the Christmas music. I love it. It gets me in the spirit. We're just 3 days away from Christmas. And again, we'll be back tomorrow with you with everything that you might need going into the holiday weekend, including Titans and Saints. We will be back ahead of these college football playoff quarterfinal matchups next week, so plenty of time to preview these. Going through that top half of the bracket with Oregon, Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana. Again, I don't have any reservations about any of those teams making it to the national championship game. That's going to be a great side. On the other side, last week when we were doing our predictions, all of us had Ohio State and Georgia in the semifinal round. The collision course is on. Thanks for coming out, Ole Miss and Miami. I just really think it's going to be tough for Georgia and Ohio State to lose. We just had the conversation about the teams coming off byes and the factor that plays. Last year, all 4 teams that had byes lost. I think Georgia and Ohio State are the 2 most talented teams in the country, and I think they're going to win, and we're going to have a great, great game coming up in the semifinals when the Dogs and the Buckeyes match up.
Yeah, you can make a case that Georgia and Ohio State would kind of be the national championship game before the national championship game, because both of those teams are certainly capable of playing in that game, and I think it's going to be great. I really do. I think Ohio State's going to beat Miami. I think that also has a chance to be a really good game. I think it's going to be low scoring considering how good both of those defenses are and how they can limit each other's offenses. But, man, Ohio State and Georgia would be phenomenal.
Yeah, that's where I look for Ohio State, Miami, too. I think those teams are both good, but when you look at the defenses, they're both solid, right? Ohio State allowing 8 points per game from their opponents. Miami only 13. They're 6th in the country. So these are both elite defenses. But when I look at the offense for Ohio State, Malachi Toney's good. They've got options over there on the offensive side. Carson Beck, I just don't know if I trust him. I think he's going to turn the ball over a couple of times. And on the offensive side of the ball for Ohio State, when you're able to run out the weapons that they have, Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, you got Bo Jackson in the backfield. Julian Sayin distributing. I think Ohio State's going to be too much. But it is funny looking through the defenses, the top defenses in the country by scoring. Almost all of the teams remaining are in the top 13. Ohio State's 1, Indiana's 2, Texas Tech 3, Miami's 6th, Georgia is 9, Oregon is 10, Alabama is 13. And the only one who does not sit in the top 20 is Ole Miss. They're 22nd, so not too far out of there. But that's a big reason why I don't see Ole Miss being able to get past Georgia in that game. Is I think both offenses are good. Ole Miss probably has a better offense than Georgia, but I think the difference in defenses is going to be too much. I think Georgia's defense is going to be able to do what a lot of teams haven't been able to, which is slow down Ole Miss. Although it is tough to beat a team twice in a season. Georgia did beat Ole Miss earlier this year.
And this is at a neutral site, and the last game was in Athens. Ole Miss had that lead, but Georgia came back. Again, it's like I said, you want to beat Georgia, you got to cut the head off the snake, because if you don't, that snake's going to bite you. And Georgia has done that to teams repeatedly throughout the year. But I just think Georgia, the way they're playing, I think they are scaling up their performance at the right time. And Ole Miss looked really good versus Tulane. They did exactly what I expected them to do. But how are they going to look now versus Georgia without Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, I think Georgia has looked like the best team in football over the last couple of months. And this game is in New Orleans. That crowd's going to be rocking. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of Dogs fans, plenty of Ole Miss fans down there. I like Ole Miss. And if Lane Kiffin was still there, I think I'd be a little more likely to pick Ole Miss. I still think Georgia's the better team either way. But when you look at the coaching, Kirby Smart, Pete Golding, I'm going to take Kirby and his defense and that Georgia team to move on and get us that Georgia-Ohio State semifinal. I think the rest of the games in the playoff should be good, right? I don't see blowouts in any of these 4 games, but I do see edges for a lot of teams. And that's why I look at Georgia and Ohio State. I think they're just an edge better than the teams they're going to be playing. But at the very least, I think we can hope that we're going to get some really entertaining football for the last 3 weeks of the season as we lead up to the national championship game.
Right. We just had to get that first round out of the way with James Madison and Tulane, and now we get some really good heavyweight matchups for all 4 games, which should be great. Should be great. And even with the 12-team playoff, there are never going to be 12 teams capable of winning a national championship. So when you dwindle it down to 8 in this era of NIL and transfer portal, I believe the number goes because think about it. Before NIL in the transfer portal, we were talking about the same teams competing for national championships. We were talking about Alabama, we were talking about Clemson, we were talking about Ohio State. LSU had the one year in 2019. We even talked about Georgia. That's 5. We're talking about the same 5 teams over and over and over. Now, there are legit 8 national championships. I wouldn't scoff at any of these teams being capable of at least winning one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there are any outliers left. I mean, we just went through the defensive stats there. All of these teams are in the top 22 of scoring defense. And if you look at team offense, let's see where they stand there. Texas Tech is number 2. Indiana is 4. Oregon 9. Ole Miss 10. And Ohio State 17. So all of them are in the top 25 or so. Miami's 29. I haven't seen Alabama yet, but all these teams are good, and they're all capable of being there. Alabama's 39. So there you go. All of them are in the top 40 in offense. All of them are in the top 25 in defense. These are all good teams, but I do agree with you. I think even though it's unlikely for Ole Miss or Miami to go win a national championship this year, it's not like it's a complete mismatch on paper. And we should get some fun games. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're a Titans fan, Ohio State, Miami, that's the game on New Year's Eve, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yes. So that's the New Year's Eve game. That's one, if you're a Titans fan, you should be looking at because there are plenty of prospects that the Titans could be interested in that you might get to see on the brightest stage with all the lights and a chance to go play for a college football championship.
Right.
615-737. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to quickly say that the thing about Miami is you said it. It's unlikely that they'll win the national championship this year, but physically, you look at the guys that they have on that defensive front and their offensive line especially, I mean, they're aliens. So this team is very deserving of being here.
Yeah, you look at that Miami team, the recruiting rankings match up with their talent level. Like they've got good players over there, possible top 10 picks this year, top 10 picks in a couple years. So Miami's a good team, and we'll talk more about Miami and Ohio State, I'm sure, throughout the next week and a half as we prepare for that game on New Year's Eve. But let's get back into the Titans on the other side. Titans did get the win yesterday. They are now 3-12, 26-9 win over Kansas City. Titans are out of it when it comes to the top overall pick. You've got 3 wins at this point. The Giants and Raiders both have 2. They've got the strength of schedule advantage on you. Oh, and they play this week, so somebody is going to get that 14th loss. Titans, very unlikely to be picking in the top 2 or 3, but still a chance for them to get a blue chip player. We'll talk about that coming up next. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly with you on this Monday morning. Next man up, 102.5 The Game. Next man up, 1025, The Game. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, along with you for 2 more segments, 30 more minutes. Chase and Big Joe will take over at the top of the hour. Again, a reminder, tomorrow, Nick Frazier will be with us. Excited to have Dr. Crane on, talk some Titans, talk some college football, talk some Predators who got back-to-back big wins this weekend. Quick update. The Pro Bowl voting totals have just been released. Have you seen this yet, Parker?
I haven't.
So the Titans have 2 in the top 10. They're the 2 that you would expect. Jim DK is 3rd overall, 1st in the AFC at return specialist. And Jeffrey Simmons is 5th overall, 1st in the AFC at defensive tackle. So likely that those 2 will both be Pro Bowlers. But I was looking through position by position, and Bears fans showed out. There is a Bear in the top 3 of every single position. And this is across the entire NFL, not just the NFC, except for outside linebacker, kicker, wide receiver, and fullback. That is it that the Bears aren't in the top 10 for, or in the top 3 for. And some of those, they've got multiple in the top 10, like Roma Dunze and Luther Burden are 6 and 7. So shout out to Bears fans having themselves a year, and they're getting their guys into the Pro Bowl.
So I love it because, as you know, I've married into a Bears family. A lot of my friends from school are Bears fans, and they were going crazy after the game on Saturday. My wife and I were sitting on the couch watching that game versus the Packers. She started crying after the game was over because they had beaten the Packers, and if the Lions lost, which they did yesterday, that meant that the Bears clinched a playoff spot for the first time since 2018. That just shows you how much it means to the city, the run that they're having. And I could not be happier for them. And I hope Corey Curtis is listening. Congratulations, sir. Robbie Stanley owes you lunch, I believe.
Yes. Big win for the Bears, battling back with Malik Willis playing quarterback for the Packers. This is not the final rosters. So, DK and Simmons are the only Titans on there. But this only counts as a third of the total equation. Coaches and players will vote as well. So we will get the final rosters Tuesday morning. So we'll have a chance to talk about those tomorrow, depending on who gets in for the Titans. The Titans did get a win yesterday. They are 3-12 on the year now. And it was an important win. Cam Ward was able to actually lift the Titans team to a win against a bad Chiefs team with Chris Oladokun playing quarterback for the better part of that game. But the Titans won, and they look good doing it. And you haven't been able to say that about pretty much any of their wins this season. The Cardinals, that one was gifted to you. The Browns won. Yeah, it looked good for a good portion of it, but Cam Ward didn't have a great day, and the Browns almost came back and tied that game late. So this was the first time where I think you could leave a Titans game feeling like they went out and won it, the other team didn't lose it, and you got to see the growth from Cam Ward. So important. But on the flip side of it, the Titans do fall in the draft order. And looking at Tankathon right now, the Titans are in the 6th spot, although that could flip with Arizona. They currently have the exact same strength of schedule at 575. So I believe the reason Arizona is ahead of the Titans is because the Titans beat them head-to-head. So there you go. That fumble from DeMarcado has gifted Arizona a spot better in the draft order. But the Titans, at this point, I'm looking at it and saying they can't fall much further. So if you're one of those people who are rooting against the Titans actively for draft order, you can stop now because they're not going to go much further than 6th. Pretty much the only way to go is up. If they lose either of these last 2 games, the worst they could fall is to 7th. If Washington were to lose out, then Washington would jump Tennessee if the Titans just won 1 game. If the Titans were to win out, which they haven't won back-to-back games in 3 years, I highly doubt they're going to win 3 in a row. But if they were to do that, the furthest they could fall is 9th. And odds are it wouldn't go lower than 8th because Cincinnati still has games against Arizona and Cleveland. Would think that Cincinnati, with Joe Burrow playing quarterback, would be able to win at least one of those games. So that's it. The Titans, they have a floor that they can fall to in the draft order, and that is 9th, probably more like 8th. If they were to lose out, they almost certainly would be picking in the top 5. But you're out of the equation for a top pick. you're not going to be able to get that massive haul to trade back at this point. So root for your team to show some progress. Maybe win another game. You got the Saints coming up this weekend. That's a winnable game. Despite the Saints playing better football, so have you. And I think the Titans getting one more win down the stretch would do a lot more for this team than picking maybe one spot higher. And there's still a decent chance the Titans could end up still picking at 6 or at 5, even if they do win another game. You just never know with these things. The Jets still have some winnable games out there. The Cleveland has some winnable games. Arizona, Washington, although Josh Johnson may be starting at quarterback for the Commanders. So maybe not Washington. But the point is, if you were rooting against the Titans for draft order reasons, the time for that is over. They're not going to fall much further. I think a couple more wins down the stretch, if they can get at least one, at least does something for this team's confidence to say, hey, we won 3 out of our last 5 down the stretch, and we look better since the bye week. And you're still going to be in a position where you can get a possible blue chip player, even though you won't be able to trade back and get that haul of draft picks.
What's more important, seeing your team win football games and seeing the guy that you drafted number 1 overall last year, your hopeful franchise quarterback, show improvement, or getting the first overall pick? And because I'm leaning with the former rather than the latter. I think it's wins and building a culture are way more important than your draft selection. I get wanting to have the first overall pick. I get wanting to have your chance of whatever elite player that you want to take, but there are still going to be players that you can get if you happen to be selecting 6th, 7th, maybe even 5th. So there are still going to be really good players, and the trade back opportunities may still be there as well. So not all hope is lost.
I think it's a pretty good shot the Titans are going to be somewhere between 4 and 7 in the draft. 1 and 2 seem pretty much reserved for the Giants and Raiders. Actually, the winner of that game, their strength of schedule may push them back because Cleveland's strength of schedule is by far the lowest among these teams at the top. But it's going to be those 3 teams likely at the top. Maybe the Jets sneak in there. But the Titans will be picking between 4 and 7. And I think if you're a Titans fan, root for teams that need quarterbacks to be in front of you. Like that's what you want. Where if it's Vegas, Cleveland, New York, all 3 of those teams might end up taking a quarterback, and it moves those elite players down the board for you. Titans are probably going to have to stick and pick. And if you had said that a month ago, I think some Titans fans would be disappointed because it looked like they were close to a shoo-in to get the number 1 pick. They looked horrible. Their 1 win was gifted to them when they were 1-11. But they've started to figure things out. You're probably going to have to stick and pick. But if you're picking in that 4 to 7 range, you're very likely going to have a chance to take somebody who can transform either your offense or defense as an elite pass rusher or an elite wide receiver. Carnell Tate, I've seen, is going in like the 4 or 5 range in these mock drafts, which are way too early. We have no idea what the draft's going to look like. But you're still going to have a chance to take one of those guys, even though your draft spot isn't in a tradable area anymore, which would have been great. I was hoping for it too. I'm not going to root against the team while they're playing. I want to see the Titans have success. I want to see Cam Ward have success. But it would have been nice after another bad season to be able to look up and say, man, we're going to get somebody to give us 2 or 3 first-round picks and a couple other picks just to move back where we can still take an elite player. But those dreams are gone. The Titans are still going to be able to add some very talented pieces. And the way things work with the draft order, I know you may look at it and say, oh, the Titans are 6th. If I'm looking at it correctly, they would pick 3rd in the 2nd round because the tiebreakers rotate based on how many wins you have. So the Titans, yes, their strength of schedule isn't helping them out because they have to pick 6th in the 1st round. And you may miss out on a player that you'd like at 3 or 4, but you're still going to get high picks in every single round, which will help you build out the rest of that roster. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll get to some of your texts and calls to wrap up the show. Coming up next, Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 1025 The Game. Final segment of the show on this Monday. Jake Lyman, Parker Kelly, next man up, 102.5. The Game. Been a fun one today. Chase and Big Joe are coming up after us. And again, tomorrow, final show of the week ahead of the holidays. Nick Frazier will be in with us. We'll talk all things Titans, college football, and Predators. Should be a fun one again. Talking about the Titans draft position here, because obviously it went down. You win a game, you're going to fall on that draft order. Titans currently slated to pick 6th in the draft with their 3-12 record. They are tied in strength of schedule with Arizona. So even if they were tied with the Cardinals at the end of the year, there's a chance the Titans could leapfrog them, depending on all of the results around the league. On our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, Stephen from Hendersonville says, this is so Titans, they can't even lose correctly. How did beating the Jags in the last game of the year and missing out on Joe Alt help this team with culture and building for the future? Oh, wait, it didn't. And I get the point. Although I think, Parker, if I'm remembering correctly, the Titans only fell one spot in the draft because of that win. So they didn't lose out on Joe Alt. They wouldn't have had the chance to take Joe Alt anyway, but they did miss out on the chance to take Malik Neighbors, which obviously is would have been a nice addition to this team.
I really shake my head on all these people rooting for their team to lose, their own team to lose and tank. Like that's actually something a team is going to do.
Right. And having the first overall pick is great. And the inherent value of what that could mean in getting more picks, of course. Trading the pick is why having the number 1 pick would be so valuable. But Ben makes a good point as well. He says it doesn't matter what our draft position is because people miss with picks all of the time. And I just saw this. I was scrolling through Twitter during the break, and Nick Suss from the Tennessean put out a chart of median career approximate value by draft position since 2000. And the number 1 pick, of course, is the most valuable by far. But once you get past 1, it's really kind of a crapshoot. You don't know what you're going to get. You just have to pick the right players no matter where you are. Parker, the second most valuable draft selection since 2000. Do you know? Do you have an idea of what it might be?
Tell me.
13th. So if you're stacking up all of the draft picks from 2000 to now, the approximate value of all of their careers stacked up, number 1, obviously, by a wide margin is at the top, but 13 is actually second. It gets a big boost because Aaron Donald was the 13th overall pick. I believe that's a large reason why 13 is in there. But number 5 is actually third, and then number 2. So it's, yes, the tradability of the pick is why losing a top pick is tough, because your front office has said all along, hey, we want to have 30 picks and we want to have 12 in the top 100. And you're not going to get that by trading away Jarvis Brownlee and Roger McCreary. You're not going to get those high value picks. The only way to do it is if you have a high pick and someone gives you a bunch of picks to trade back. And you're out of that scenario, which is tough. And Caleb makes this exact point on the text line. He says, when you can use that pick to get more chances to get hits, that's what we need. We aren't getting number 1 now, so it doesn't really matter. And that's the point is, yes, I can understand being a little upset that your team has won 2 out of 3 when you were in pole position for the number 1 pick, and now it's completely out of reach. But I do think the wide-reaching culture for this team can be helped by these wins. And Stephen from Hendersonville is talking about that win against the Jaguars. It felt a little different, though, because that was when they were tearing down the old era. Derrick Henry left after that. Ryan Tannehill was gone. Mike Vrabel was gone. That was the end of your window. And the culture carryover probably isn't quite as large as it is when you're trying to build up a new culture. And that's what the Titans are trying to do right now with a ton of young players who are trying to find their way in this league and realizing that it's hard to win games. I think the wins this year can be more valuable than the wins back in 2023, which it cost you that chance to take Malik Neighbors.
Because you're going into the future with these guys. You drafted Cam Ward number 1 overall to be your franchise quarterback. You took some of these receivers. You took Gunnar Helm to be those pass catchers. You took Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham for a reason. These are the guys that you drafted or going with the future with.
Yeah, and I think based on what we've seen from some of these young guys, they've had a tough time. J.C. Latham is the perfect example. He hasn't lost very much in his life, and I think it really took a toll on him. I'm sure it's really helpful for his growth moving forward that not only has the team won two out of the last 3 games, but they've run the football well. They've protected Cam Ward. 3 sacks in the last 3 games total. Is that right?
It might be 2.
He got sacked twice yesterday.
How many times did he get sacked versus San Fran?
I think 0, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
And then 1 for Miles Garrett against the Browns.
You are right.
So
yeah. 3 sacks the last 3 games.
Cam Ward was on track to be well past Caleb Williams' 68 sacks from last year. Like, I remember looking at Caleb Williams' stats at the beginning of the year, just as a comparison for Cam Ward, and seeing 68 sacks. And you wonder how that can even happen. That's 4 per game. And Cam Ward was right on pace to meet that or get past it. He's only at 51, which is still a high number. It's way too high. But based on where they started, to be at 51 with 2 games to go, I think that shows you the growth that the offensive line has had, and that's important for this team moving forward. You're going to miss out on an opportunity to trade back and get a haul of picks, for sure. And could that accelerate the rebuild? Yes. But you're still going to be in the opportunity to take a really, really good blue chip player. The key is Mike Borgonzi has to pick the right guy. This is another pick you cannot miss on. J.C. Latham, Cam Ward, the last 2 years, you take guys that high in the draft at premium positions. If you want this team to get back to being a contender, you cannot miss with those picks. This is going to be another one coming up this year, and Mike Borgonzi has to get it right.
Yeah, and we got to give him the benefit of the doubt because, 1, it's his first year on the job, and 2, the way that he drafted last year. Just, seeing Mike Borgonzi talk in press conferences, he comes across as a guy that truly loves football and is football savvy, which there's not a whole lot of that in that organization right now in that front office. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt, at least in that aspect, and see what he can do in year 2 in the draft.
Tomorrow, we're going to spend a little more time on Titans and Saints because, again, it's our last chance to really talk about it this week before the holidays. But this is a game that's going to be very interesting. The Saints have been a lot better lately. They've won 3 straight games. They are starting to find a little bit of a groove. Kellen Moore, I think, has solidified himself as a guy that they believe in as the head coach. And Tyler Shuck has been pretty good. So we get another matchup of rookie on rookie. Cam Ward, Tyler Shuck facing off. Can the Titans keep their streak going of playing good games? And if they do, the Saints, although they're playing better, they're still not a very good team. They have better weapons than you saw yesterday. The Chiefs were without Rashee Rice and obviously didn't have a good quarterback back there. Saints have Chris Olave. Jawan Johnson had a nice day yesterday. But this is going to be very, very interesting on Sunday. Again, the Titans, they can't fall much further in the draft order, right? Like, they can only fall 3 more spots at the most. And if they lose at least 1, then they're going to pick in the top 7. But this is an interesting one because both these teams are playing better football lately, although they're not very good teams.
Yeah, no, the Saints have looked great the last 3 weeks. I don't know what's gotten in their water, but I guarantee they're happy with this win streak than trying to get the first overall pick. I guarantee it.
That'll about do it for us today. Again, tomorrow, Nick Frazier is with us on the show. We'll have a fun one to wrap up before the holidays. Chase and Big Joe are coming up next. Keep it right here on 102.5 The Game.